Hi, welcome back class. Welcome back to Asexuality 102. Again, I am Professor A, and today's lecture we're going to be talking a bit more about the A spectrum and a bit more about demisexuality and fraysexuality while we're at it. So to review what we talked about last time, we talked a bit about stuff that you should have learned in Asexuality 101, and then we talked about the sexual orientation and romantic orientation grid. So, using that grid, I'm only going to draw the bottom half of that grid, and I'm going to rotate it around. We have our pure asexuality on one side, that's why this is pulled ace. And then we're going to have on the other side, that's the other part of, so out of this part, out of this kind of like house that I've drawn, we're only drawing this section right here. This part, all this is going to be represented like right here. Now, a way to say people who feel sexual attraction towards another person is allosexual, or allo for short. Then it goes from allosexual to asexual. That's the asexual spectrum. Now, traditionally, the main orientation we're going to be discussing today is demi. And that's traditionally put in the middle. But you do have all these other ranges of attraction towards other people. It's more of a lack on this end, a complete and total lack on the ace end, and no lack at all on the allo end. You have all this room for different things. For example, we have something that could flip more on the ace side, but right here would be ace flux. Ace flux is you don't really feel attraction except in like rare circumstances. Similar to heteroflux, where you're mostly straight, but you do feel some homosexual attraction in some rare circumstances. So that's a brief overview of the asexual spectrum. It's not much. Really, it's much more simple than this one right here. So now, let's talk about our main orientation, the one in the center, demisexuality. When we talk about demisexuality, and I'm going to include fraysexuality because they're both very similar in concept, but they go opposite directions. So, when we talk about demisexuality, we talk about sexual attraction after an emotional bond has been formed. Now, this isn't like a sexual bond or anything of that nature. It's more of, I feel more emotionally connected to you, therefore I start feeling attraction towards you. Otherwise, for the case of demi, you don't feel any attraction towards anybody. So, demisexual. That means you feel no sexual attraction towards really anyone until you really made a deep emotional bond. Now, how is this different from, let's say, two straight people? Well, I don't feel attraction towards them. Like, everyone needs to make an emotional bond before sex. Well, not always. Not everyone does. Now, some people don't have an emotional bond, or they don't need to make one to feel attraction towards anybody. For example, two homosexual people could not really have an emotional bond to each other or wouldn't feel emotionally attached to anybody, but they'd be like, ooh, you know, they're pretty cute. I want to go to bed with them. You know, same thing with straight people, bi people. It does not matter. Now, the difference between that is just pure attraction to what you feel. Demi, and to an extent fray, you have to first make an emotional bond. Now, that emotional bond can be really anything. Now, fraysexual is very similar, but goes in the opposite direction, where you actually feel attraction, sexual attraction in this case, towards a person until an emotional bond is made. and then it kind of decays or frays away. So to illustrate that, in the case of the demi, which I will be drawing in, let's do purple. In the case of the demi, they fall more around in here on this side. But then we're going to write in black emotional bond, or EV, and that's when they go from here all the way over to here. Normally. From basically asexual to allosexual. But that's after the emotional bond, which is written right there. As you can no doubt tell, if we're talking about fraysexual, they start out all the way over here, go over here, after an EB has been formed. So the reason I talked about these two together is because they act very similar, they just go in completely different directions. That's a very brief overview of demisexual and fraysexual. Now I'm only going to give you a shallow overview of it because a lot of this type of concept, especially when it comes to demisexuals and fraysexuals, it's a lot more personal, and a lot of personal experience kind of falls into this, to where people may disagree with me on how I illustrated this, how it feels, because people are very different. When you get to especially these two, this is where it gets really personalized, and there's more than one way to feel demi or fray. Now keep in mind, I just drew the arrows for exaggeration. They could, for example, a fray could actually go from like here and then kind of like stop here, or a little bit frays away, but not much. And same with the demi, where it could go all the way over, or it can go all the way to like, I don't know, right here, where you feel some attraction, but you know, not very much attraction at all. Again, it gets really personal to whoever you're talking to, and whoever is demi or fray. Anyways, that'll be all for this lecture. I hope you guys learned a bit more about the asexual spectrum and about demisexuality and fraysexuality. Next lecture will be more on aromanticism and kind of the romantic spectrum. Anyways guys, see you next class.